Okay. So to continue. Given that it's quite a long process, but actually it's just the process is just simple. Medyo mahaba lang siya. So for us to organize our thoughts regarding all these steps, let's name these steps that we followed in solving for the problem, this optimization problem. Sige nga, looking at our problem, what is the first step to do? Type it in the chat box. That's the first step. Bale po, COD yung equations lagi po. Constraints equation, objectives equations, derivatives, plus simplify. Wow, very good. Your classmate was able to make her own simple process. That's correct. Another, what about the rest? Okay. Of course, remember, number one, you have to understand the problem naman. And draw the illustration. Take note of that. Kailangan kasi talaga iniintindi yung problem at dinodrawing yung illustration. Okay? That's the first step. Of course. Second, identify the constraints. Okay? And then, from the constraints, isolate, represent and isolate a variable. Represent and isolate a variable. Represent and isolate a variable. Yan, let's keep it simple, huh? That's the first step. Second step, after getting the constraints, represent and isolate the variable. Third step, identify the objective. Can you follow? Or the goal, the problem to solve. Yan. Okay? And from here, we will be substitute the what do you call that? The temporary value from the constraints. Okay? That's the third step. Okay, nandito na tayo. So, sinubstitute. Nandito na pala tayo. In-isolate, sinubstitute. Okay? And then, fourth step, get the derivative. Okay? And after getting the derivative, don't forget to change the prime, change the equate the derivative to 0 na lang para mas madali. Equate the derivative to 0. Yan, nandun na tayo. After na sinolve, number 5, solve. Solve for the variable. Yan, from the goal muna to. Yan. Then, after that, then solve for the other using the constraints naman. Yan. After getting that, after getting the other variable, then go back to the objective and solve. Yun. So, eto, let this simple 5 steps be our guide in doing this process. Okay? I want you to take a screenshot of this. so that you will be guided as you do the process. Okay, let me see. Okay, it's okay. Now, kindly take a screenshot of these steps. Of course, you have to understand the problem and draw the illustration. You need to draw it. Second, identify the constraints. This is where you will get, this is where you use the given. Okay? Represent and isolate a variable. We need that. Third step, identify the objective. And this is actually the goal, the problem to be solved. Okay? And then after that, substitute the temporary value of the constraints. Then get a derivative, equate to 0, and then solve. That's it. Okay? Let's have another example. This time, by the way, just like what I told you a while ago, if, always remember, this is a food for thought. This is a food for thought. If, for example, we are dealing with perimeter area and the maximum area that we can solve, please take note that it always ends up with a square. Sir, sabi po kasi rectangle. Bakit po naging square? Remember, a square is a rectangle because the definition of the rectangle is it has two pairs of opposite sides parallel and right angles, and it has right angles. Ang tanong, does a square have two pairs of opposite sides that are congruent or and parallel and congruent? Yes or no? Yes. Oh, and then does it have right angles? Yes. So therefore, a square is a sub-variant of a rectangle. Tandaan niyo po yun, ha? We will use that process po when it comes to applications of derivatives po for optimization problems. Yes, this is our process because we always need to make our constraints and our objective. Okay? Show me a reaction if that's clear. Okay. Thank you. Let's have another example. This time, gawin nating exciting yung ating constraints naman. Okay? Let's take this example. Litan ko lang ng konti para magkasya. O kaya, daling ko to dito. I need space for the computation. Ayun. That's our problem. Oh, try to understand it, ha? And then, ito, lipat ka ng konti dito. Okay. Let's follow this process. Of course, first, understand and draw the illustration. Let me hear from Ivan. Ivan, kindly read our problem. Go.
A farmer has 1,200 meters of fencing and wants to fence off rectangular field that border a straight river. He needs no fence along the river. What are the dimensions of the field that has the largest area?
Oh, okay. So, were you able to imagine the problem? A farmer has 1,200 meters of fencing. That's the limitation. That's the given. And wants to fence, but that doesn't end there. Take note of this. And wants to fence off a rectangular field that borders a straight river. Oy, sabi nga, understand the problem and illustrate. So, merong river. There's a river here. Of course, if there's a river, hindi mo naman babakuran yung pampang, yung gilid ng river. Kasi tatangayin lang ng river yon, tatangayin lang ng ilog yon. So therefore, it needs not to be fenced. Okay? Now, kailangan nating i-fence ay itong lugar lang na to. Ito, may rectangular. I will make it thicker. Ayan. I need to fence this. Can you follow? Show me a reaction if you understood the illustration and the problem. Tama? So, ibig sabihin, titingnan natin, if we look at the dimension of our rectangle, it's not a complete set of parts. Kasi one part of the rectangle is missing. That's because of the river. That's the problem. From here, we are now identifying the constraints. Can you follow? And so, perimeter na naman to. This is again perimeter. And of course, in the perimeter, P, we always use the P. So, let's now assign the variables. Of course, if this is our length, kasi usually when we were children, naturo natin na yung mas mahabang part ng rectangle, yun ang yung what do you call that? Yun ang yung length. At yung mas maigsi, yun ang yung width. Tama? Ganun yung tinuro sa atin nung bata tayo. Ayun. So actually, it's not naman. Actually, you can interchange this kasi the length can also be the other way around. This can also be your length and this can also be your width. Depende sa taong tumitingin. Okay? So, para di tayo nagkakalituhan at pare-pareho na lang tayo naiintindihan, let our children's memories be used. The longer side of the rectangle be our length and the shorter side be our width. But again, don't get limited with that concept, ha? Kumbaga nung bata kasi, yun yung madaling paraan para ma-explain na hindi na pwedeng magkaiba ng yung haba ng bawat sides ng rectangle. Okay. And of course, we are now senior high school. Let's change them to variables. Let L be X, let W be Y. Actually, pwede sila magkapalit, whichever you want. Okay? So, let it be this way na lang. And so, let's now do these constraints. Our constraints will be the perimeter, of course. And what will be the formula of your perimeter? Type it in the chat box. What will be the formula of the perimeter? Type it in the chat box. Okay, given our illustration, please write the perimeter of your given figure. Linnea is correct. What about the rest? What's the perimeter? Kasi from the figure, that's where you derive or make your constraints formula. Ilan ba ang X? Ilan ba ang Y? As simple as that. Because we are talking about this will also be, of course, Y. Same lang yan kasi pareho yan dapat eh. O game. What do you think will be the formula of the perimeter? Type it in the chat box, please. Let's wait for the rest. I want to see how you form the formula. Type it in the chat box. Okay. Okay, correct. Very good. Oops. One of your classmates used 2x and 2y. Will we use 2x? How many x do you have ba in your figure? Wala ka naman dito. Bawal kang maglagay dito kasi wala dapat doon. Kakainin lang ng river yon. Magsasayang ka lang ng pera doon. What do you think will it be? Okay. Chance already gave the complete constraints formula given the value of the perimeter, which is 1,200. Very good. Chance is correct. What about the rest? Si Isaiah, medyo nasobrahan ka ng isang dimension kasi your perimeter here has only two width and one length only. Okay. Remember, perimeter, we're just adding all the sides, huh? We're just adding all the sides. So if we will look at this, there are two y's. So 2y. Perimeter is just a simple addition, remember, plus 1x. Can you follow? And so, by using already our given, which is 1,200 meters, let me highlight that, to 1,200 meters, then we can already substitute the value. So, this will become, ready? 1,200, that's the perimeter, is equal to 2x, 2y. Unahin na natin si x. Hindi sila sanay na una si y. X plus 2y. Let this be the temporary. No, not yet. Not yet the temporary. After that, okay, that's our constraints. Next step is represent. Oh, we're done with the representation and isolate the variable. Okay, isolate the variable. Okay, which do you want to isolate? X or y? Which do you want to isolate? X or Y? Whichever, no problem. Yung hindi kayo magkakaroon ng mahirap na solution. Okay? Ang pinakamadali dito, X naman po. Okay, X naman po kasi si X, siya na lang mag-isa. Wala na siyang kasama sa buhay. So, okay lang na siya na lang ang maiwan. Aray. So, to isolate X, let us transpose to Y to the other side. So, for the isolation of the variable, we are on this part already. We will have here 1,200 minus 2y is equal to x. There you go. That is our first, or that is our temporary equation. Let me note it here. Temporary equation. Okay, kasi hindi pa, meron pa kasing variables na hinahanap, kaya temporary pa lang siya. Okay? Next, let's identify our objectives. Oh, by the way, before we move on to our objectives, kindly show me a reaction if up to that part, until isolating a variable, everything is clear to you. Show me a reaction, please. Let me see. Show me a reaction. I want to see if you're getting the process. Very good. Okay. Next, objective. What is our objective? Let's continue. A farmer has 1-2 meters of fencing. Bawal na mayroong part yung river na bakod kasi kakainin lang. So hindi na niya babakurin yung river kasi magsasayang lang siya ng pera doon. So, eto na. What are the dimensions of the field that has the largest area? So, of course, we will be dealing with area. Okay? So, of course, that's our end goal. Kailangan mo makuha yung area niya and, of course, the dimensions kasi yun yung pinaka-bida. Okay? Na makukuha mo yung dimensions na yon if you will be using the area. Okay? Largest, the maximum area. So therefore, we will now be dealing with the formula for the area. Let me see nga if you can recall. Open your chat box. What is the formula for the area of a rectangle? What's the formula for the area of a rectangle? Type it in the chat box, please. Let me see. Very good. It's length times width. But now, our length and width are represented by x and y. What do you think now is the new formula for our A? What do you think is the new formula? It will be A is equal to x times y. Can you follow? And so, we're done with identifying our objective. Next is substitute the temporary value. Okay. And so that will be our next step here. Substitute the temporary value from the constraints. So it will become A is equal to, which has the value, the X. So we will be changing the X with this value. So that becomes 1,200 minus 2y times y. Let me change that to y. Ayan, para malaman ninyo na itong x lang ang pinalitan natin. This one only. This is what we changed with this one, which was taken actually from there. Can you follow? Okay, show me a reaction if step number 3 is clear to you. Show me a reaction. Paulit-ulit lang yan pag optimization problems. Good. Next step is to get the derivative. Okay. O, sige. But before we get the derivative, of course, we have to simplify this first. Or else, magmumultiplication ay magpa-product rule pa kayo. Mas hahaba lang ang problema. So better yet, let's now distribute y to all the terms inside the parentheses. So we will now have A is equal to, type it in the chat box, please. What is the distributed value for this problem, for this expression? Type it in the chat box. Distribute y to 1,200 minus 2y. What will it be? Okay, very good. So it will become, take note of this, one of your classmates sent 4y squared. You're just distributing y, ha? Wala siyang kasamang 2. So therefore, it will only be 1,200y minus 2y times y. That becomes 2y squared. Ayun. Yung squared na lang yung inano ko. Ni-read ko para galing siya doon. Okay? Very good. Okay, now. So we're done with that. We're done with this. And the fourth step is get the derivative. What is the derivative of this? A prime will be equal to, what's the derivative? Type it in the chat box, please. Ayun. Very good. Let's wait for the rest pa. What's the derivative of 1,200y minus 2y squared? Type it in the chat box. Very good. So this becomes 1,200, correct? Minus 4y. Okay. So we're done with getting the derivative. Next step is equate the derivative to 0. So therefore, it will become 0. Change this. 0 is equal to 1,200 minus 4y. Okay, malapit na tayo. We're now here. Solve for the variable. O, sige nga. When you transpose na lang natin to para maging positive. When you transpose it to the other side, what will be the value of y? Go. Solve for the variable. Type it in the chat box, please. Okay, one of your classmates already solved even the other variable. Very good. Good. Okay. So therefore, this will become 4y is equal to 1,200. Divide both sides by 4. So y will be equal to 300. Wow, 300 what? Don't forget your unit of measurement. Our unit of measurement is meters. So therefore, that becomes 300 meters. Very good. Let that be your value for y. And now, solve for the other constraints. Solve for the other variable from the constraints. So, balik na tayo dun sa temporary equation. Okay. So, this will become, let me just use this here. So we have 1,200 minus 2 times our y is 300. Let's change it here. 300 is equal to x. So therefore 1, 2 minus 600 is equal to x. Subtract, x will be equal to 600 meters. Wow, that's it. So we are done with that one. And finally, go back to the objective and solve. We're actually solving for the dimensions, which is x and the y, the 600 meters and the 300 meters. And of course, for us to complete, kasi sinasabi dito, the largest area, might as well solve for the area para lang kompleto yung picture ng ating problem. So the area will be length times width, that becomes 300 meters times 600 meters. The area will be equal to 1,000, 6, 12, 18. 1, tama ba? 1, 2, 3 square meters. Ayun. But actually, the main beta here are these two. Okay? So your width here, your y, this is 300. This is 300. And your x, your length is 600 meters. And that's the process. Got it? Show me a reaction if you understood the process. Very good. O, see, ang dali lang tintindihin. Okay. Let me copy this because I will be using this. Okay na? Take a screenshot of the solution. You can use this for your future endeavors in this topic. Okay? Take a screenshot, please. Okay, done. I will now clear things up. Okay, let's now have another example. This time, baka kala nyo lagi na lang area tsaka perimeter yung ginagamit. Meron pa tayong ibang mga problems. Okay? Let's have another problem here. Ready? Let's take this. What about number problems? Oh, meron din tayong mga number problems. And actually, number problems are easier. Kasi we just have to understand what is being stated in the problem. Let's take this. These are number problems used in optimization. Okay. The sum of two numbers is 50. What is the largest possible product of the two numbers? If we will not use optimization kasi, my children, we can just simply think of two numbers. Sum of two numbers is 50. Two numbers whose sum is 50 and then when you multiply, that's it. Ganun lang siya kasimple. Sample, 49 times 1. Ay, no, it's plus 1 pala. 49 plus 1, that's 50. However, that's just the sum. However, kailangan mo kasi product. Ang gusto mo, pinakamalaki. Pinakamalaking product na pag minultiply mo, yun yung sagot. Pero dapat, pag in-add mo yung numbers, 50 lang. So, 49 times 1, this is just actually 49. Mababa. Let's have another. 48 plus 2, that's 50. Oy, ito, mas lumalaki. This becomes 96. When you multiply, 48 times 2, it's 96. Can you follow? All the more kapag nag-47 plus 3 ka, which is equal to 50. Pag minultiply mo to, 47 times 3. 21, 2, 4, 12, 13, 4. Oy, 141. Ayun. So, medyo lumalaki. If you will look at this pattern, sige nga, if you will look at this pattern, what are those two numbers? Do you think, look ha, tignan nyo, if you will be balancing all these numbers hanggang susundan nyo yung pattern, what do you think will be those two numbers when you multiply, those two numbers whose sum is 50, but when you multiply, you will get the biggest product. Sige nga. Without even doing the manual computation in derivatives, what do you think are those two numbers whose sum is 50, but the product is the largest? Okay? Linnea made a guess. Similarly with the guess of Elijah. Similar with the guess of Jazel, of Lewis Markey, and also of Heart. Heaven. Okay, tingnan nga natin. Their guess is this. Let's clear muna all this. Okay, burahin ko lang muna para maliwanag ang buhay. Okay. Siyempre, pare-pareho sila ng guess. They all have the same guess. And their guess was 25 and 25. They said 25. Oh, wait lang ha. Guess lang to ha. Hindi ko pa sinasabing ito ang sagot. Guess. 25 plus 25 is equal to 50. And then, sige nga, what's the answer? 25 times 25. 25 times 25. What's the answer? Type it in the chat box. 625. 625. Will this be the largest possible product of these two numbers whose sum is 50? Whose sum is 50? Ayun, nasobrahan ako nagkulangan ako ng tono doon. Okay, now let's do the process. Actually, we will just be following the same process. We will verify through the process of optimization. Okay, understand the problem? We already understood it. Okay, and draw the illustration. Wala ka namang ito-draw. Dapat may dalawang numbers lang. So, next, identify the constraints. The constraints is this. Sa palagay nyo, which of this is the constraints? Is it the sum or the product? Which one is the constraints? Is it the sum or the product? Type it in the chat box, please. The constraints limits you. Yun ang nagbibigay siya ng limit. Saan ka ba nalilimit dito? Is it the sum or nalilimit sa given, or the product? Of course, what gives us limitation here is the sum, because it only says here two numbers na dapat 50 lang ang iyong sum. That's the limitation. O that's the constraints. That's it. So therefore, it will become constraints. Let x and y na lang tayo, no? X be the first, y be the second. So the constraints will be x plus y is equal to 50. Can you follow? Now, isolate a variable. What do you want to solve? Kanina, in-isolate natin si x. This time, let's isolate y. Sige. If I will isolate y, what will be my temporary equation? What will be my temporary equation when I isolate y? Y is equal to, type it in the chat box, please. Very good. So we have to transpose x. So siya ay magiging 50 minus x. Very good. That's our temporary equation. Okay. TE na lang TE. Temporary equation. Yan. Okay. We're done with the second step. Next step. Identify the objectives. Sige, what's the objectives? Is it the sum or the product? What is the objective? The sum or the product? The product, kasi yun yung isinasolve mo. So therefore, let's just label it here para lang maliwanag. Objectives will be equal to the product. Okay? So therefore, the product is x and y. Wala tayong function na pwedeng pagsulatan, unlike area or whatever, di ba? So therefore, x and y, let it be just f, or f of x na lang. F of x will be equal to x times y. Can you follow? And so, after that, substitute the temporary value for the constraints. Sige nga, what will be our substituted temporary value from our objective. Type it in the chat box, please. F of x is equal to f of x. Gagawin kong blue. Ay, black na lang. F of x will be equal to y has the value, so x will retain, times y is 50 minus x. Tama? Very good. That's f of x. Next, let's continue. Oh, simplify. F of x will be equal to, let's distribute x to the terms. This will become 50x minus x squared. Can you follow? So we're done until there. Oh, after that, after substituting the temporary value, what will be the next step? The next step will be get the derivative. Oh, what is f prime of x? F prime of x. Type it in the chat box, please. What will be your f prime of x? Your derivative. Very good. Wow, ang babilis na ng mga classmates natin. Ha? You're getting the process. So we have here 50 minus 2x. Very good. Okay, we're done with the derivatives. After getting the derivatives, the next step is equate the derivative to 0. What will it be? Equate the derivative to 0. So therefore, we will change this to 0 is equal to 50 minus 2x. Oh, now we're done with the equating to 0. Next, solve for the variable. Go. Solve for the variable. This time it's x. What will be the value of your x? Very good. Your classmates are correct. So let us transpose this to the other side. So that it will become positive. 2x is equal to 50. Divide both sides by 2. So x will be equal to 25. Very good. That is our first number. Now, let's solve for the second number. It says here, then solve for the other using our constraints temporary equation. Here, go. Solve for y. What will be the value of your y? Type it in the chat box, please. Very good. Wow. So we have here y is equal to 50 minus 25. 25 was your x. And solving it, y is equal to 25 as well. Wow. That's it. And so, now that we know the two numbers, what do you think is our product? Our product, we will now go back to our objectives. So we have here x times y. This is equal to 25 times 25. And that is equal to 625. That's it. And the guess of our classmates is correct. Got it? Show me a reaction if you understood that process. Let me see. Very good. Diba? Ang dali lang. Ganun din. Very good. So, that's it. That's how we do optimization problems. We just have to follow these steps and we will not be lost. Show me a reaction if everything is clear. This is about to end. Please come back for the continuation. Okay, good. I'm glad you are understanding the process. See, ganun lang kasimple ang optimization.